And we're live. Hi, everyone. This is my first stream since early May, and I'm very happy to get back to streaming in general after my summer work and travel slumber. And today I'm joined by the guest who I was personally really expecting to talk to, the mother of chains, CMO of Aztec, and the woman who can seemingly do it all and probably doesn't need introduction, Claire Kart. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me and for the nice introduction. I'm really excited that we finally get to sit down and chat.
Likewise, I posted to one of the group chats that I'm doing the live stream with Claire, and people were like, she doesn't need the last name. You can just tell which Claire it is.
You can thank my mom for giving me a pretty unique name.
And the personal brand, which is definitely going to be part of our conversation further down the line. But I would love to start with your story. You've been on crypto for a while. Can you share how you started? What did you do in your career? And basically, how you became one of the top marketers in the space and one of the top voices in the space altogether.
Sure, I'm happy to. I will rewind my story of how I got into crypto all the way to 2011. At the time, I was living and working overseas, and I was an expat abroad. I was kind of looking for new friends, and this was in the era where like meetup.com meetups were really big. I was going to meetups and just trying to sort of, make friends and find things I was interested in doing. To make a very long story short, I went to a lot of meetups I wasn't interested in at all, like things that just don't interest me. And then I happened to go to a Bitcoin meetup. And at the Bitcoin meetup, I was like, oh, wow, these people are fascinating. So I got really interested in the space. I think, fast forward a couple of years, all my colleagues were like, can you stop talking about this and maybe go work in it because you just spend all your time talking about this and we're tired of hearing it. At the time, though, like there wasn't really a crypto industry and there certainly wasn't room for marketers. This was now 2014, 2015. So I moved to San Francisco. I worked at a very early stage fintech, SoFi, which later IPO'd and was a great success. But there I just got to be around people who were, really familiar with like tech, productizing things, taking things to market, Wall Street, kind of like a lot of the combinations I think that we see coming to bear in crypto. So I was there for 4 years. And then around 2017, the bull market started running. And all of a sudden, all the projects in San Francisco that had previously not been that interested in hiring marketers wanted to hire marketers. And I just jumped at the opportunity. I had been a part of like the Ethereum meetup scene and really kind of looking for my opportunity, but things were so different then, like if you went to a meetup and said you were a marketer, you might get kicked out. Someone might insult you. Both of which happened to me. So I was usually kind of undercover, like, oh, I work in tech, just keeping it vague. So yeah, that's how I got into crypto. I'm very grateful for Ripple. They gave me my first opportunity. I was the first head of community there. So I was heading up kind of like their, client community for Ripple, as well as the very famous or infamous XRP army. And then after a year there, I just decided I want to get like as deep into the tech as I can. So I went to work at the first ZK native L1 and took them to market. And then I've been in ZK since then. So that's a little bit about my background and history. You give me some very nice compliments there about how I became a leading voice. I think for me, like, because I had worked in like Web2 and I had worked with founders to build their personal brand, to build their voice for many
Mhm.
years. I'd done that as a playbook in crypto. I knew how to do it. I mean, for me, it's not hard. I know how to do it, right? And then I had this realization one day that like I log on to Twitter and the things that are going through my head are like, oh, what are the most interesting campaigns, or which agencies are doing the coolest work, or which marketers are working on the most interesting problems. That's what I was thinking about. I showed up to Twitter and it was all about, gas wars and L1s versus L2s and, new cryptographic primitives, like really cool stuff. But I kept looking like, where are my people? And I just couldn't find anyone talking about marketing. But I
Mhm.
spent a lot of time on Twitter observing other people's conversations. So my feeling, and it was very visceral, was just like, I want to I want to be able to participate in conversations in my industry, not just observe them. I don't want to just be on the sidelines. Like, we're all here working hard. We all should be having these conversations because I think it makes us better, right? Like, I guarantee you the people who are talking about L1 versus L2 on Twitter are learning something and it's making us all better. And I just wanted that for marketers. So that was why I started GTMCon. That's kind of the impetus behind, really trying to build my personal brand. Is I wanted to create like a tribe of marketers where we could have conversations. And, now like we're doing a live stream, right? We're getting to talk about our craft, and that's what I wanted.
Exactly, because I think I had a bit of a similar story in terms of like becoming a marketer. I started off with CMO role, but I remember that when I was showing up to conferences, like literally the first conference I went to, I had a headache because I was so nervous, like people didn't want to talk to me. And every time I was telling that I'm a marketing officer, they were just like, I don't know what to talk to you about. And I was
Yeah,
saying that like I'm quite tech native, so I can talk to developers. It's not like a different language, but people were still like, why do we need marketing? Now, when you say that you're a marketer in the room full of developers, they're like, oh, interesting. Tell
yeah,
me more. I don't know
yeah.
when this narrative shifted though.
I don't know. I mean, I think like I like to assume the best in people. So I really started being really vocal about marketing probably about a year ago. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I like to assume the best in people. I like to assume most people are curious, but I think it's hard to be curious about something you know nothing about and you've never heard anything about. So, what I'm happy with now is like, I do feel like the conversation around marketing, not just that it's important, but also, who are the people doing interesting work? What are the important things to think about? Those are conversations now that I think anyone on Twitter in our industry has access to. So if they want to observe my conversation, they can. And I hope that they can learn from it, get curious. And that, they'll just be more of like a mixing of perspectives, right? Like, I want that really technical developer to have a great question for you and you to them, right? So that there can just be more of like a flow of information. I think,
Yeah,
in
for
Web
sure.
2, like we see, some of the most successful Web2 businesses are not like super tech heavy, right? Like, yeah, there's tech innovations and
Exactly.
there's technology, but a lot of where the value of those startups
Hmm.
or public companies come from is from the commercial operation that they built to wrap the technology in. I want that for us. Like, not that we shouldn't be trying to shoot for the moon on the technology side, but I want there to be a couple huge home runs that are really, they're new and great tech and they're wrapped in a really good commercial wrapper. And that's what makes them successful and viable and brings more capital into the space.
Exactly, but I think crypto space is going through exactly the same issue. You can see really small new teams that are building superior tech, but unless they add marketing to the mix, it's not going to move the needle for them because it's not the best product from the tech standpoint that is winning the customers. It's the ones that are seen, the ones that are out there and explaining what they built in the best terms possible. So I think marketing became um, it always was one of the key focal points in crypto, but now even more with competition just mounting. If you even check the number of tokens, I remember when I started working in crypto, there were maybe like a little over 2,000 tokens.
Which felt like a
Recently,
lot.
like, yeah, exactly. And everyone was discussing like, why do we need more? The market is already like over flooded, so you don't need any more tokens. Now it's something crazy, like it's over 30,000 tokens.
Oh gosh.
And like TGs is all we talk about. Like, this is bread and butter now.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You bring up an interesting point. I mean, I think sometimes when founders or developers hear like, well, it's not the best tech that wins, you need marketing. And I think maybe what someone could take away from that is like, oh, okay, all I got to do is talk about this thing. But, marketing essentially is it's building a market for something, right? That is what it is. It's not talking about things on Twitter, it's building a market that spans so many different activities and like areas of expertise. And one of them is talking to your users, talking to your customers. So, I think when founders or developers or technical people hear that, yeah, it's not just about the tech, it's about the marketing. Like for me, what that means is you can't build things in a silo. You have to talk to your customers, talk to your, users, and then tailor not just your message, but also your product to them, right? Like all those things should be linked and informed. And I think a really good leader, a really good marketing leader, also is very okay being opinionated about product and influencing the product roadmap and working hand in hand with like a product leader internally to make sure that what you're taking to market meets a customer need. And that's why I think projects who engage in marketing get really good traction. I actually think it's that bridge between product and marketing. So that's something I've been, I don't know, kind of thinking about a lot lately, because I think there is this misconception that, oh, okay, like all we have to do is talk about it. And it's like, no, marketing is so much more than that.
Exactly. It goes deeper into the product. And I always say that marketing is part of the business function
Yeah.
because I think for the longest time in crypto, everyone thought that marketing is hype. You just like literally say whatever you want, you pay to a bunch of KOLs, slap some money on top of it, and this is it.
Yeah.
Now,
That's just a way to waste your money.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I have so many questions in the back of what you just mentioned. First of all, how do you go about building the go-to-market strategy? Like, what is your approach when you start with a project? What would you do first? I hate this like 30, 60, 90 days, but roughly,
Hmm.
what do you pay attention to?
Um, I don't really think in terms of, I mean, I do think in terms of frameworks, but very loosely, I think for me, whenever I'm thinking about building a go to market, like the first thing I want to do is understand the product as much as I can. Um, Not just like what it does and who it's for and what it does differently, what it does better, what it does worse, but also like, the technical innovations and what's the timeline. So the way I usually approach this when I join a new project is I put myself through literally the most painful exercise ever, which is I tell the team, we're going to ship a public roadmap. And they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, we're going to ship a public roadmap. We are going to put down on paper what we're building, all the different components, how they come together sequentially. We don't need
Hmm.
to hit exact dates, right? We don't need to say, hey, in 2 years on October 1st, we're going to ship this. No one knows that. But we are going to get this all kind of on paper. And I think that process, and I always have the help of like a strong, like product marketer, right? Like in my case, David, who's on my team, and I did this exercise together. And so I can't fully take credit for it, but it's something that I lead, right? And
Hmm.
it involves everyone at the company, like the engineers, the cryptographers, the product managers. Everyone needs to kind of have a say in this and touch this. And it brings really interesting conversations to the table, which is like, okay, we're building all of these things, which of them kind of like nest under which? And like, is this a product or is this like a feature or is this and so it helps you sort of have all those
Hmm.
conversations, because sometimes when you're building infra, you come in and, your team is like, let's market the proving system. And you're like, I don't know if the proving system is a product.
Yeah.
I think that might be like a component or, and you have to figure it out. So that's kind of what I do. It's extremely painful, but in the process,
Hmm.
you learn so much. And then once you have that public roadmap, it's like, okay, I'm planning my go to market against this, right? In terms of who I'm reaching and when, how much money I'm spending, conferences I'm showing up to, audiences, right? Like we're building a decentralized L2 at Aztec. And so we need node operators. We're building a decentralized network. And so part of the go to market involves like we have to market to node operators. Then we'll make a really big shift after the network is live, where now we need to market to developers. And all that
Hmm.
comes from the public product roadmap.
Yeah, that sounds like a very thought out and very logical approach. But I'm sensing straight away like the panic from the team, probably, because most of the teams have never done this before. And I think most of the teams have a completely different understanding of how marketing works. Have you ever had like real pushback from the team in terms of like the steps that you are offering to them? And how do you work through that? Because I think for a lot of marketers, this is their main issue. Like I personally had multiple cases when I was hired to the teams, and then founders were like kind of ghosting me for weeks because they didn't want to give out the information. And it's like, it's something that is not native for them. They're not used to working in this mode. And that's why I think they try to push back on this as much as they can. How do you work around this?
Um, I think for me, like I approach the hiring process, like I'm pretty intense in the hiring process in that I'm evaluating the team. And I understand like that is partially a privilege that I have now, right? Like I think there's many, many marketers who can't go in and like be like, no, no, I'm evaluating you. And I get that, right? Like there's some power dynamics at play, but I think every marketer can come to interviews. Like any good person joining the team should want to know if they're a fit, right? It's not about getting a job. It's yes, you need your job, you need to pay your bills, but what's the fit, right? Because ultimately, if you don't think you're going to be a fit, you're not going to be successful. And so coming to the interview process and being like, I really hope that my skills are fit and that my culturally I'm a fit and I definitely want to like do this process with you to see if I am, but I'm also assessing if I will be a good fit here. And so I think making sure that in the interview process there's opportunities where you can say, look, like I like to work like this, do you think that's going to be a fit? You need to vet those things ahead of time and also give the person a sense of like who they're hiring. I think I see many
Mhm.
marketers come to the table and kind of like sort of sell themselves as like a yes man or a yes person, like, yeah, that's a great idea. We'll definitely do that. We'll definitely do that. When in the back of their head, they're thinking like, oh, I don't know. You need to say that. You need to be like, well, here's how I would approach it, right? And kind of give your very reasoned response. I think if the person in the interview responds really poorly to that, you're not going to be successful there. Don't take the offer because you're going to go through the process of onboarding and then probably churn out, and that's not a good outcome for the founder. It's not a good outcome for you. It's just not a good outcome for anybody. So yeah, my advice like starts a little bit further back. I think if you get yourself into a situation where you're on a team and they're giving you a lot of pushback, like I think you have to find at least one advocate and try to sit down with them and like don't have a 30-minute meeting, be like, I'm struggling here and I'd love to get some advice from you, and just kind of lay out like where you're coming from, what your intentions are, and ask for their help like navigating the organization. And I'll say, and like my boss, the founder of Aztec, like I think he's okay me being public about this, but when I joined, like of course there's hiccups and there's friction, right? Where you don't necessarily know how to join the executive team right away. You don't necessarily know how to work with everyone. And
Mhm.
the other execs, the other employees who had been there for a long time were super generous with their time when I just said like, hey, I'm really struggling to work with so-and-so. Like, do you have any advice? And mostly it comes down to like, there's different communication styles. Maybe there's a history there where they were burned by an agency or someone who was in the seat prior to you or whatever,
Always.
right? They have a history. And so understanding like, okay, they're going to be open to it, but they're a little bit scared, right? So like, how could I make them feel more comfortable? So I think, yeah, if
Mhm.
you find yourself in that situation, don't be alone in it. Like reach out to your teammates and ask for support and insight.
I think it's an awesome piece of advice because I'm also always telling people, and this comes from my personal experience, that I think especially for women, it's very difficult to push back and it's very difficult to say no or kind of claim your space
Yeah.
in multiple different ways because I see guys talking to each other and they can be like absolutely bashing each other's opinions, but I see women being like too polite. And sometimes it's like too polite for, which is like damaging their situation. And I've been in this situations as well, like where, let's say, I was too scared or like too shy to ask for something in the interview, or I felt that it might be not a good cultural fit. But at the
Hmm.
same time, I was kind of scared to ask for more. But then the more I work in crypto, the more I'm seeing that this is extremely culture based.
Yeah.
And also, if I'm coming back to my Web2 experience, let's say when I'm was interviewing for Skyscanner, I had 8 or 9 rounds of the interview. And 5 of them were cultural with different team members on like completely different aspects of the culture. At first, I didn't understand because I was thinking that like, if you like me, why do you drag me through all this like levels of hell? But then I realized that it's not your technical skills because you can learn pretty much anything if you want to, and if you have like the base skills for that. But then the culture, this is what has to really click because you cannot teach people the culture. Like we'll have our own working modes, we have our own beliefs of what works and what doesn't. Um, so I think it's an amazing advice to interview the team as well, because eventually, exactly as you mentioned, like the outcome, if you don't do that, it's going to be bad on both sides.
Yeah. I would go even further than interview the team. I I do this. I recommend like people I advise to do this. Like you can vet the founders. You can back channel people who worked for them before. I mean, they're doing that to you, or they should be. You should do that to them. There's nothing wrong with trying to seek out information about someone who you're about to enter into a like medium to long term relationship with, right?
Mhm.
You have to speak to their leads from their previous round, like, how do you know this? Like, what do you know about this founder? What do you think they're facing in terms of challenges? Like, what kind of communicator are they? Do you think they're going to be open to this? Is there broad buy-in that they're ready to go to market? I think doing those things makes you stand out as like a really top candidate, because if you get in that role, yeah, and you're not a success, I mean, it's just a huge hit to the project. It's a huge hit to the project.
Exactly.
Um, the other thing I'll say, and this is going to sound maybe cheesy because I know there's all the memes online about like increased shareholder value, but I think like when you're joining a company, like companies exist. Well, maybe this is debatable, right? But in the more traditional definition, like companies exist to like return shareholder capital, increase shareholder value.
Hmm.
They didn't take on VC money to like sit around and have a bunch of petty personal arguments, right? Like they took VC money to try to make VCs returns. Now you can like that or not like that, but we live in a capitalist system. When I join a project, like my thought is always, okay, this might be personally hard for me to be a little disagreeable or push, but like that is literally my job in this system, right? Like they are paying me money. My job is to try to, increase the value of this company. And so I think it's easier to put like your niceness tendencies aside when you kind of like hone in on like, what is my role in this system? And again, maybe people will roast me for saying increase shareholder value, but you are there to try to take them to market in a way that um, you know gets them product market fit and lets them raise more rounds, lets them be revenue positive. Like that is your job.
100%. I think in a lot of cases, we're forgetting that we're trying to make money in this industry. Like we're trying to make money for the business. So you have to be tough at some cases. Like you have to make decisions. You have to be authoritative. But the question that I have for you, have you always been like that? Or do you think this is something that you earn? Like you work until a certain stage and then you earn your right to be like more, I would say like stand your ground more?
Yes, I think yes. The answer is yes. I think that some of this power and authority comes with experience. It comes with age.
Mhm.
But then I do think some of it is like attitude driven. Obviously, I haven't always been like this. I mean, like I've grown a lot. Let's see, this is the 20, my career's 20 years in, right? Like I finished my university in 2005 and I started working right away. I've had 2 master's degrees in between. So yeah, continuous journey between school and work of 20 years. And definitely earlier in my career, I was meeker and I got sidelined more. And I felt kind of like angry about it. Although I think, looking back, like my boss or whomever it was did know more than me, right? I think I grew up also in the generation of like, you need to earn your seat at the table. People talk about Gen Z a lot. Like, I don't know, I don't have much to say on the topic. Like, I love Gen Z. I have a lot of Gen Z folks on my team. I think they're fantastic, but there does seem to be less of a like earn your seat at the table mentality. It's hard for me to relate to. Like, when I started my work in 2005, like, yeah, you really did have to earn a seat at the table. Like, you should not talk in meetings unless if you were extremely prepared. Like, there was just a lot of pressure on young people in the workplace to perform. And then I think my generation going through like the Great Recession in 2008, like everybody kind of felt lucky to have a job. So you were working really, really hard if you did manage to, hold on to a job. But yeah, I think some of it maybe is generational. I'm not sure. Like, it'll be so interesting to me to see like the first kind of Gen Z executives and how they lead and like where they kind of source their power from.
Yeah, that's very interesting, like whether it's generational or not, but I resonate with a lot of points that you mentioned because also from my background, I'm originally from Russia. I think our culture is like you have to earn your seat at the table. This
Mm,
is literally what you hear from childhood, like from everywhere. You cannot speak unless you bring value to the table. But what I'm seeing now, we have a 12 years difference with my brother. So he just turned 20.
mhm.
And the kid just amazes me. Like he's raising money for his businesses, and it feels like he doesn't have like any fear at all. He can do whatever he wants.
It's
And
amazing.
he doesn't have this aspect, like, for me, I always thought that I have to work, I need to have like certain education, experiences, and only after that I can say things that I want. For him, he's like, no,
Yeah.
thinks he's valuable, just without any stripes. Which I think
Yeah.
it's incredible, but at the same time, like depends on people, right? Depends like what's behind that.
Yeah, it's a big shift. I don't know. We'll see. It's so interesting to me. I think, yeah, sometimes I forget that I'm in my 40s and I've had a 20-year career. So I think, I get a lot of people who like DM me or approach me at conferences and they're like, how did you? And I'm like, well, it took 20 years. So go easy on yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, like it takes a long time. And obviously in there, like, there were stumbles and there were moments where I felt like maybe I wasn't building the career I wanted, but I mean, building your career is such a long game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's also, first of all, I'm always stuck when somebody asks like, how do you think I should start my career? Because to be fair, nobody knows. Like
No.
everyone has such a unique path and like replicating, for example, what you have done might work for some people, but might not work for others because this is like very unique to you and to your skill set, to your background, and just that's a unique journey. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Um, but coming back to the personal brand, um,
Yes.
do you think it helped you to kind of excel your career?
Well, okay, interestingly, I mean, I've been on Twitter since, again, for anyone out there who's wondering how to do these things quickly, I've been on Twitter since 2009. Twitter's my main
Yeah, that's
platform.
fairly quick.
I don't know. I mean, yeah. So I've been on there for a while. You could scroll back my first tweets. I don't think anyone liked them or saw them. So it's taken, quite some time. And I think interestingly, like most of my career was built without like a public personal brand. Obviously, I had my personal brand like amongst my colleagues, amongst like the tech circle in San Francisco, kind of like the infra circle in crypto, right? But I think like those brands were more effective, like for me at least, like pre-COVID. I mean, when I was working in San Francisco pre-COVID, it's like all the alt ones like literally worked within like a block or two of each other. They were all there, like Mirror, Cosmos, Mina, Solana, like da 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 da. I could keep naming them, right? We were all there, and so like you had your personal brand, kind of IRL personal brand, right? Going to events, knowing people. And that was really effective for networking because I think, yeah, you just get to talk one on one to people and build it. But especially now where like work is very remote, I think having digital personal brand is really, really important. I think Aztec hired me before I had like a huge personal brand. I kind of built my personal brand like more so in the last year and a half. It's really accelerated. But I think it's definitely helped me with networking, just like meeting other people who are doing good work, which lets me in turn do better work. Also, it's really helped me with hiring. Like, I have to say, it's been super easy to build my team, and my team is like very high performing. I think we have like the best person possible in each seat. And that was easy because I think, they can look me up on Twitter. They know exactly sort of how I'm going to show up and who they're going to work for.
Mhm.
So I think in that regard, it's really, really helped. We'll see what's next. I mean, I kind of actively advise and invest in companies, just a small handful, and it's definitely accelerated that piece as well, where I now get, like a lot of inbound and have to evaluate it. Whereas previously I was having to go kind of source opportunities and deals and things like that. So
Mhm.
that part's been
I
interesting. And
think
it does make me think like, you know, I'm really happy to Aztec, and I'll tell anyone this internally, right? Like, I hope to be there for a long time, but like, no one ever works at a job forever. And I do wonder often, like, well, what would my next chapter be? What would I do?
Mhm.
Um, you know, and I don't know. And I think my brand will kind of play into that process somehow, but I'm not exactly sure how it's going to unfold.
I think definitely because we live in the day and age when if you have the personal brand, the doors are open for you because you can start so many things on the back of this. Even if you're staying in the same company, you can just venture out. Exactly as you were doing with advisory or like any consultancy, this becomes much easier if people actually I wanted to say if people see you, but do you think having your face attached to your personal brand matters? Or can we just go digital for forever?
Do you mean like having a non PFP or,
Yeah, does it hold you back? or, or does it not?
you know? No one come after me. No, well, no, I've never had. Okay, I have my PFP with like my sunglasses on. To me, that feels so anon. I'm obviously not an anon at all. I'm all over the place with my face. Um, Maybe again, it's a generational thing. Like, I never thought to have like an anon PFP. Like, to me, the idea
Mhm.
is so wild. Because I'm like, well, it's me, and so here's my face and here's what I have to say. And I know that makes me like a real solid boomer, but I don't know. I'll say this though. I If someone reached out to me for a role, contracting, freelancing, somewhere where we're going to engage in business together, I would not be put off if they had an non PFP, as long
Mhm.
as there was like a good body of work to look at, right? Like they had a portfolio, all of those things. So when it comes to me working with people, hiring people, it doesn't even register to me. I want them to have a good PFP, like a cool PFP. If they have like one where I'm like, this says nothing about you, then that's kind of a ding. But yeah, a non
Mhm.
or the real person, I don't think it matters, at least to me.
So it doesn't matter, but the PFP matters.
I think so. I think like, if you have a good picture of yourself or like whatever your
Mhm.
PFP is kind of, it says something about you. Either like,
Yeah.
if it's a pudgy penguin, like, okay, you belong to that community, or, it's a cool photo or a cool design, right? Like, and for me, it's got to work with the header. Like, I do look at all that stuff
Mhm.
because I work with a lot of creatives and I want to see that, they can essentially express themselves.
Yeah. Well, it's a very interesting take, and I actually share it because my first job in crypto, I was hired off a 30 minutes call where the team was off camera and they asked me to switch off the camera.
Oh,
So I thought because I was
huh.
very new to crypto and I was like, oh, they didn't like me. They didn't like me at all because it was just
Oh,
literally a
that's
second.
interesting.
Yeah, so it just turned out that they were not used to calls with camera. And
Okay.
then when I worked with Premiere, the whole team they were not anonymous, but they were pseudonymous.
Hmm.
So they had like a really big, all of the four founders, they had a very big personality on CT, but
Mhm.
nobody saw how they looked like. So we had internal calls in team with camera on, but let's say if we talk to partners that were not so close, they would be off camera or like having
Hmm.
something like a hologram that was
Okay.
moving on a video like along with their movements, which was very surprising. But at the same time, I think this was one of the teams that had the most integrity. And like, I never even thought that they might scam anyone or like they might run away just because they had so much at stake. And actually, they had the whole philosophy behind being pseudonymous and
Hmm.
how it has even more value than not being anonymous. Because
Hmm.
basically, like, it comes with your digital personality and with your like digital authority, reputation, and so on. So it's kind of same thing. They just don't want
Yeah.
their neighbors to know that they're making money on crypto.
The idea of like digital identity, I mean, I think this is why when I accepted the job at Aztec, like I was mostly I was motivated because I had decided that I was going to devote the next like 5 to 10 years of my career to privacy, figuring out privacy, like, in whatever contribution I can make. And I was thinking a lot about digital identity and like, I don't know, it's such an interesting field, like, and topic. I don't exactly know the solution, but I grew up in a really small town, like a super tiny town. I mean, where everyone knew each other. Not just everyone knew each other. If I would go to the grocery store, like people would be like, "Oh, you're so and so's granddaughter." I grew up with his brother. Like, right? Just a
Mm.
super tiny place. So this idea of like my identity is like I want the internet to feel like a small town, and I know that sounds cheesy, but like that idea where you can know and trust people, you can have these interactions. And, if you want, you can venture out to the big city, right? Where there's
Mhm.
more people, maybe you don't quite know them as well. I think for me, that's like the interesting part of digital identity is like, can it be flexible? Can it kind of let you show up in different venues in different ways that are sort of programmed in different ways, right? Like, where is the social network where you're talking to a person? I want
Mhm.
as much as I love my reply guy bot army because they always agree with me and they have really positive things to say. I'm
They're
like,
the best.
they're the best. Like, hats off to them, man. You make me feel good every day. But no, really, like, where is the social space where you know that you're talking to like a real confirmed person?
Yeah.
Um, I think Facebook used to be that more in the day because you had to have the college email. Right,
Mhm.
there was, like, different colleges that were whitelisted. You had to have a college email. The only way you could get a college email is if you were enrolled with the college, and you had to display a name that, like, connected to, like, your college, like, the first part of the email. So it was that, and I think that's kind of what
Mhm.
made Facebook really special. And I think that's something people don't talk about a lot in terms of, like, bootstrapping a social network, and that part to me was really interesting.
Yeah.
It was very identity based. So that's something I'll be interested to see how it plays out.
Exactly. I think especially with ghostwriters, reply guys, and everything that is like AI automation, we're trying to cut down the amount of work we're doing and growing the brands, or like whether it's a company brand or a personal brand. But at the same time, I feel like we're losing the essence because out of my followers, I know for sure who is commenting by themselves and who is using some sort of software to do that. And in a lot of cases, I'm just slightly pissed off because I'm like, I have to respond to that. I'm responding by myself.
There is so there's someone on our team who I love. He's so awesome. And anytime we
Mm.
have, a campaign, we're always asking employees, hey, like go interact with the tweet, pretty normal stuff. He is so good at reply guying on the day of our campaigns that the other day I was like messaging him and I was like, did you build a bot? Like, just tell me yes or no. It's okay. You can tell me. And then I want it. And he was like, no, that's really me. And I was like, oh, that's so
He
nice.
was
He's
just on
such a
the
big
roll.
supporter of marketing. Like, and he's just reply guying so well. It's so on message that I'm like, he must have built a bot.
Yeah.
No, it's just him being like an amazing colleague. So I want a bot, but there's no Claire bot yet.
Yeah. I would love to do that. I was actually consulting a team that was building something like this,
Oh,
but it's
interesting.
extremely difficult. And I
Hmm.
think AI is not at that level yet because it still sounds like kind of robotic, but I'm really waiting for the whitelist.
Yeah,
Mm.
so like a little known part of my career history is I had a very short detour I was a teacher, I was a classroom teacher for sixth graders.
Mhm.
And I got my certifications, all that stuff. So I was teaching school. And, you know, at that age, you're trying to teach kids like critical thinking, but also how to like respond to a prompt. And a lot of the AI reply guys, like they look like they're doing that like sixth grade, like, how do I respond to this prompt? You know, where you write, like, that's an interesting question. And then, you know, you include words from the prompt. Like, it's basically like a non-answer, you know, but it's kind of like a way to start thinking about how to engage in like a question response or a dialogue. So a lot of the times when I see the AI reply guys, I'm like, okay, this is at a sixth grade level, right? Like 10, 11, 12
Yeah.
year olds learning how to engage in intellectual discourse. And no shade to sixth graders, they're great. But yeah, AI has a little bit of a ways to go.
Yeah, a bit of growth to do.
Yeah.
Coming back to your work at Aztec, because we
Yes.
all know that you've done a massive rebrand recently, both for Aztec and Noir, as far as I know. I think rebrands are always kind of a delicate topic because from marketers' perspective, more or less every project I worked with, I was coming on board and I was thinking that I really want to rebrand because it's going to be so helpful. And like what the founders are telling me is not conveyed in design. But I think it's kind of even like a joke between founders that every marketer wants a rebrand. Like we know why we need it, but how do you explain the rationale? And also, I think it's interesting because you didn't do it from the start of your work with Aztec. You've done it like kind of in the recent days, right? And you've been with the
Yeah.
company for quite a long time now.
Yeah.
What was your reasoning for this? And what are the effects that you're seeing now or like you're expecting in the future?
Yeah, these are really good questions and also a really good and yeah, kind of funny observation, but you're right. I think, yeah, it is sort of the meme about CMOs, like we hired a CMO, time for a rebrand. Um, so I guess to go back to like maybe the timing first off. So I joined in January of 2024, so about a year ago. And Aztec has like two things under it, right? There's Aztec the network, and then we launched a foundation in Q1 of 2025, and then there's Noir, the like our DSL, right? Our ZK DSL. So when I was looking at these things, I'm like, okay, well, again, let's look back to the public product roadmap. Which one of these is like closest to kind of being like feature complete V1, like what has product market fit, knowing that there are like kind of these three like brands that I need to own. Um, Obviously, we're still building the network, you know, like we're in the kind of late stages of testnet. Noir was like the obvious fit that this has a real product market fit. It has real market traction. And so, what can we do now to just kind of like get all the stakeholders together, really tighten up the strategy and story, layer on like visuals and all of those things after, right? Because for me, it always starts with the strategy piece of mission, vision, values. Who are our audiences? What are our promises to them? What are the benefits we're communicating? From there, let's go build a visual identity that matches, right? So when I took a look, like, yeah, Noir just felt like it had so much going for it, so many great teams building with it, so many teams that were getting ready to announce that they had like redone all their circuits in Noir. So we got to work on that right away, and that went live in December. So that was kind of our first piece, and that was an internal sprint. So there was that. Then we did Aztec Foundation, pretty light there, like general foundation approach, but we still wanted to make sure that like mission, vision, values, and all of those things were really clear and tight. Then we got started working on the Aztec one. I think so. That was like the sequencing. So I've essentially done 3 rebrands in a year, which is like a lot. I'm a little bit tired, but it was really energizing as well. In terms of like why we did them, again, I think it just goes back to like the Aztec team is incredible. They have pursued this like singular vision over the course of 8 years. And each time they met a problem, they realized like there wasn't existing technology to solve it. So they had to go deeper, right? Over the course of those 8, 9 years, the vision never changed, right? Like they always felt like privacy was the missing kind of unlock for crypto adoption. Um, but when you build for 8 years, like team members come and go, like you pivot, you shift. I felt like it was a really, really good moment for us as we were about to really launch like our huge go to market to just get together all the executives and really clarify mission, vision, values. Like, are we all on the same page? What voice do we want to speak with, right? Like, are we going to play it safe? Do we want to be bold? Privacy is a very tricky space because based on regulations, court cases, it kind of comes in and out of fashion, like how bullish people are on it, right? And so the team had rode so many of those waves. So it was like, from where we sit now, from all of your experience, like how do we want to speak to the market and how do we want to present ourselves? Are we rebels? Are we radicals? Are we, more of that like steady hand, like all of those things. And then I think like the moment that really clarified it for me was when I was interviewing with Aztec. I was really familiar with the team from their cryptographic innovations because I've been in ZK since 2018, 2019. So they kind of needed no introduction. Like I wanted to work for them. And I knew they were like badasses, right? Like I knew the stories about Zach and Joe and the others just like literally running through brick walls to like do what they wanted to do and never giving up. But then I saw the brand and I was like, oh, I don't know. It feels kind of like it doesn't have teeth. It feels a little forgettable. And I just felt like that was such a pity given how hard they had worked, how long they had worked, the challenges they had taken on. So I was like, we gotta get some oomph behind this, and kind of like reintroduce ourselves to the market.
It's very interesting because I also like how you called it rebel. Because I think when I looked at the brand, the first thing that I was thinking, it's very like bold and kind of degen choice of colors. But I
Yeah.
know, especially from working with infra companies, then whenever you mention the word degen, founders get spooked because they associate degen with something crazy, like unprofessional, sloppy, and just like a meme
Yeah.
kind of design. But I like how you worded it as rebel, because I think this is exactly what you want to convey when you have the cutting edge technology and when you have this personality of founders.
Yeah. I think too, I mean, I don't know. We kind of like a big part of the inspiration for the brand was sort of looking at like maybe historical degens, if we want to call them that. So
Hmm.
like I think Michelangelo was like a huge degen. Like he
That's an interesting take.
he was.
Why?
I mean, he was very innovative in terms of like his funding models,
Hmm.
right? Like the way he was sourcing
Hmm.
funding for his projects. I think the way he like showed up, was walking around Florence and Rome. Like he was really quite a figure and a personality. He was bucking convention.
Hmm.
And then the way he was representing himself through art was like extremely controversial,
Hmm.
right? Like he
Hmm.
was putting like God and Adam like in the same frame, which was like
Hmm.
really kind of almost heretical. I studied art history, by the way, so like I could go on about this, but to make like a long story short, I was like, there have been degens throughout history, or there have been people who have like challenged conventions throughout history, and how can we tap into some of that energy, right? Because like we're not the first people to do this. We're part of like a long lineage
Hmm.
of people to try to challenge the status quo. So how could we draw inspiration from people who have challenged the status quo, but not in like a single moment, right? Like the Aztec team has been working on this for almost a decade. And so who are those people who are really masters of their craft? So we started digging into that, masters of your craft, people who challenge convention, rebels. And that's kind of how we started exploring this idea of like cultural renaissance, but not just cultural, right? Like the Renaissance was really this time when like math, science, capital, and culture all came
Hmm.
together, right? Like the Renaissance wouldn't have happened without Cosimo de' Medici, new funding models, all of those things.
Hmm.
So we were kind of playing with all of those things. And yeah, I was like, how do we make like a really sophisticated degen brand?
I love it. And I like the references to art. I was studying in the art school, so that rings the bell. And I think it's amazing when people are taking references from outside the crypto world, because it really enriches everything that we see in the crypto world eventually.
Yeah, definitely. And like, I don't know, I feel like because we spend all of our days on computers and that's quite divorced from
Hmm.
like maybe our predecessors, like we
Hmm.
somehow feel detached from those movements. But I see the work that the Aztec founders have done as like part of a very long lineage of people who are challenging convention and kind of challenging, yeah, just challenging existing conventions. And I really wanted to kind of tap into that in a way that felt visceral and visual. I'll say too, we had incredible partners. The agency that I worked with, um, I've partnered with them over the course of the last 10 years to do different work. So there was
Do you
also
want to
that.
share the name, or is
Oh
it
yeah,
is
I'm
it a
happy to.
secret?
No, it's not a secret. I don't keep secrets, I think the secret is in the execution. uh,
Yeah, exactly.
their name is Umi Design, UME Design. They're on Twitter.
Interesting.
Yeah, UME, like X Design,
Hmm.
UX Design. And one of their like founders, she had been working at a different agency when she was early in her career, that I worked with when I was at SoFi. At the time, SoFi had
Hmm.
raised $1 billion, which I think was like the largest
Wow.
ever private, like the largest ever like venture investment into a fintech and into a tech
Hmm.
company kind of in that cycle. And so as part of that, we decided to kind of assess the brand, right? We just got this capital infusion. Let's make sure that the brand is really like aligned with our goals and will really work for us as a tool. And so I
Hmm.
worked with her there. And then I was at Mina, and it's a very long story. I won't get into it, but essentially the project had been Coda, and then R3, like kind of like the closed ecosystem enterprise blockchain from like the earlier eras of crypto. They had a product called Corda, and they filed like a cease and desist in Delaware, which I found out from the block. Like they didn't contact us prior, but they wanted us to stop
Hmm.
using the name Coda because they said it was similar to Corda. So all of a sudden, we're in testnet, we're very close to launching, and we can't use our name. And so I called them and I was like, is there any way you guys would be willing to step into crypto? Because really nobody was back then. And because
Hmm.
we worked together before, they were like, "Yeah, we'll take a gamble on it. We liked working with you. We'll see we'll see what it's like." And anyway, they've been really trusted partners. So I don't have enough nice things to say about them. I always wish I could say more because they're really lovely and amazing. And yeah, they were great partners. So this was a lot of me kind of as the internal champion and leader, and them obviously as the external agency guiding us through all of it. And the founders were extremely involved. So I'm very grateful for that as well. I think not all marketers get that kind of support.
100%. But sounds like you had a very good chemistry. And I think it's very important if you find either team members or agencies or service providers that you like, just hold on to them and take
Yes.
them from one project to to the other, because it's
It's,
very difficult to find
it's like
anyone.
a couple weeks ago when Travis and Taylor got engaged, and like all the photos of him like
Mhm.
gazing into her eyes and proposing, like all I was thinking of is like, a founder that supports marketing or like a good
Yeah.
agency. Like, yeah, I'm in love with this person, like hold them tight. Don't let them go. Like propose, put a ring on it.
Love it. We have just a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to ask you about GTMCon,
Yes.
because I think last year it was crazy success. And to be honest, for me, this was a wake-up call, because I
Oh,
was obviously I'm in the industry for 5 years. I was never taking Twitter seriously. I was never like tweeting excessively. I started slightly before the GTM con,
hmm.
but then I had a couple of months when I wasn't working full time, and I just decided like I took your words literally, and I was thinking that I remember what resonated with me the most is that every single day you're not building your personal brand, you're leaving things on the table.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that I will do it. I love all this kind of like psychological or social experiments. And I started with myself always. So I was like, okay, I'm going to tweet like crazy. I'm going to be just tweeting about everything I'm interested in, everything I'm seeing, everything I'm learning. And I think I came to the point when I had like 15 tweets per day and multiple people messaging me and telling me that I'm everywhere. But literally, I grew my Twitter for, I doubled, I think, in 2 or 3 months.
That's impressive.
Which, yeah, which is crazy. And which was just
Congratulations.
like, yeah, thank you. But thanks to you for the advice. Because I never even thought about Twitter as the platform that you can kind of leverage whenever you search for your next opportunity. And I think it worked out for me really well because literally since I started working on my Twitter, I never applied for anything. Like
Yeah.
people were reaching out to me and I'm like, wow, this is interesting. Like never happened before.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that. I think you do incredible work. So I'm happy more people know that and now
Thank you.
can find you. And I've seen a
Mhm.
lot of like cope from founders and technical people, but I'm
Mhm.
like, y'all, you say it's hard to hire marketers. Like, here they are. Here's where to
Exactly.
find them. Like, chill out, you know? Like,
Mhm.
but no,
Yeah.
well, first of all, I really am super happy to hear that. I think for me, GTMCon last year was like, I don't know, I don't want to exaggerate, but it was like a religious experience. I mean, I had spent
Mhm.
so many years in the industry going to conferences and, you know, like chit chatting people, having great combos, but never like locking in with someone and being like, yes, we're talking about the things we're super
Yeah.
interested in. I wanted that experience for myself and others. I wanted a space where we all felt like we could kind of not like air our grievances, but just, you know, talk about challenges and like come together and sort of like rally, support each other. So I'm really happy to hear that you got something out of it. I think, yeah, GTM one. So right after GTM Con Zero in Thailand, people were messaging me like, when's the next one? Are you going to do one in Denver? What about Cannes?
I was one of them.
Okay.
It's like, when is the next one?
And I was like, okay, I'm glad y'all liked it, but like, I have 2 kids. I work, you know, I'm a wife. Like, I have all these
Mhm.
other duties. And as much as it was amazing, I planned it myself and I had some collaborators, but I was kind of the
Mhm.
main impetus, you know, finding a space and programming it and the
Yeah.
editorial thesis. And then I paid for it, which I know I don't want to brag, but like,
Mm.
I didn't want sponsors. And also, I don't think anyone would have sponsored a marketing conference then. So I paid for it because I was just like,
Mhm.
I'm fortunate enough to have some extra money, and this is something that I want to give to the industry. This is me open sourcing my ideas. So
Mhm.
here you go. And so I wasn't like really eager to like plan one of those every 3, 4 months and fund it.
Yeah.
Additionally, I think for me, like I want to see sort of like the long horizon of like what interesting trends were present, you know,
Mhm.
this year that we really want to have panels and talks on, like, what do
Mhm.
we feel is the most interesting thing to discuss and sort of having that like longer view as a conference. Again, because it's really editorially driven. So I decided to have one in Buenos Aires. I'm really excited. I'm also a little intimidated because I need to start planning it. But this year, I think I'll have some success in landing a few sponsors who will still let me have like sort of editorial control over what we discuss. And I'm looking for community input. What are the most important topics in marketing that happened in the last year or that we think is on the horizon that we want to talk about? And yeah, so in that way, like I'll lead it, but I want it to be kind of community driven and like, what do we all want to come together and discuss? What do we feel is most
Mhm.
interesting and important? So I don't know. Do you have any suggestions or ideas?
Let me think about that because I think
Okay.
so much has happened for
Yeah.
marketers in particular. Like for the industry, it's been like a crazy year when new
Yeah.
narratives were popping up. But I think for marketers especially, because there were so many topics like you were fighting all the fights. I mean, with starting from like why marketers matter to Ethereum Foundation to like
Oh,
a lot a lot of things
oh
that
my God. By the way, shout out to the Ethereum Foundation. They're crushing it.
exactly.
They hired
Yeah.
some amazing people and they're out there now
Hmm.
telling the story of like the network, the technology, the community I love. I think so many of us love.
Hmm.
Even if you're not like an Ethereum stan, like I think just having more ecosystems telling their stories so developers can figure out where they belong. We need that. So props to the Ethereum Foundation. I'm so pleased to see that they've like really shifted into a new era. Yeah, I'm really excited. I think one topic I am definitely going to talk about. So something that kind of went off this year was the 400K plus 1% conversation
Oh
that,
yeah, it's my favorite. You know,
that I tweeted
it's one
about. And
of
I
the
was
questions.
like, sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
because when I'm going to meetups, like I was vocal about the fact that I was raising my package a couple of times. And I think for me, it was like a lot of discovery in this process. Then I just landed on numbers and like token packages that I was comfortable with. And I know that this matches what I provide to the teams. Um, but I have a lot of questions from people who like I shared bits of this thinking, and they were like, "How much should I charge?" And I'm always saying that I don't know, like, how much do you think you should charge? And I think that's 400K. To me, this conversation was kind of ridiculous because, like, first of all, if we compare this with salaries that you might have in Silicon Valley, this is going to be peanuts for the same level. And secondly, it's really interesting that all those conversations are really hated by marketers.
Yeah.
It's like, don't you want to get money? Like, why are you so sad about somebody being paid 400K plus equity plus tokens if this is your benchmark? Like, what's wrong with this?
Yeah, I didn't. Well, it was funny because, like, so first of all, I think a lot of people interpret it as I was saying that's what I made. I don't make that. And I'm fine with that. But I was hearing that, and I actually thought for seed and Series A, I was like, that's a lot. Like, oof, I don't know. But it was
Hmm.
like this arc, right? Because I think at GTM Con, a big part of my motivation was I felt like marketers weren't having these conversations. I thought we were a little undervalued and underpaid. And so then it swung to where I'm hearing from recruiters, yeah, like, 400K plus 1%. And I was like, oh, okay, things have changed. So talking
Yeah.
about that, but yeah, it spurred this whole, I mean, like people were memeing the hell out of it. So anyway, that will definitely be a topic at GTM Con. And I'm trying to figure out the way in, but I definitely think talking about salaries and maybe how to negotiate a salary or how to build a career where you get to the 400K plus 1%, kind of as a concept, not an actual number, I think would be a really interesting topic for marketers. I get a lot of messages about it, like how do you know what's fair? And I don't know. I feel like I take a lot of calls with people who are like, I have an offer and I need to sign and I don't know if it's fair. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll read it. I mean, I can't, it's hard to say, right? Every team is
Yeah.
different and you have to figure out like what you're optimizing for and how much you believe in the team and how much you're willing to sacrifice like salary versus equity and upside. But anyway, that'll definitely be a topic because I think I don't know, people seem to have very strong feelings about it.
Yeah. And I think the regional aspect of this, it's another topic that is always hated, like
Yeah,
whether you should tailor salaries to the region.
very true. And like obviously I'm coming at this from the perspective of I live in California, I live in Silicon Valley. And so, we
Mhm.
do have, I don't want to say inflated salaries here, but the cost of living is extremely high. And we're in the
Mhm.
center of this like nucleus of all this capital sloshing around. So salaries do tend to be quite high here.
Yeah.
And I think, if that were to translate to another market, like maybe that wouldn't be appropriate. I don't know. But it's also hard to say when we're all working online and we're kind of in
Yeah.
one space. So does everyone get the Silicon Valley exec package? Like, I'm not sure. So I'm really hoping to have like maybe a really good head of talent join me to have this
Mhm.
conversation. I think it's fascinating.
That would be spicy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like all aspects of this. I think on the marketing front, what was coming up quite often is the differences between consumer marketing and infra
Oh,
marketing.
100%.
Because I even heard from a lot of founders, they're like, it's very difficult to market our product because we're talking to developers. And for me,
Super.
I'm like, yeah, impossible. Like
Also,
nobody can do that.
I mean, I started my career in consumer marketing, and
Mhm.
in consumer marketing, I'm just gonna say it, it's more fun.
Yeah, you
It's
can
just
do more
more
things.
it's more fun. You can do more things.
Mhm.
you can move faster, you can do more experiments, you don't have as many restrictions.
Yeah.
You get to be like a little bit more siloed from like engine product, which some people really like. They kind of
Hmm.
have more autonomy. You could think of it like that. So
Hmm.
I think the skill set to market infra, it's just a very limited talent pool of people who like will take the time to dig into your proof system to produce a massive product roadmap, right? Like those people are rare.
Hmm.
And so I think infra marketers are rare, really good infra marketers are even rarer. So
Hmm.
it makes sense that they would get paid more. Whereas, yeah,
Sure.
consumer it is easier, it's more fun. I think, yeah, a lot of consumer tech is also like less differentiated. And so, there's just like a lot of factors that go into it. But I think it's pretty tried and true. Like it's pretty known that infra marketers just make more. And I didn't get into infra for that reason, but I've stayed in infra for that reason. I'll say that. I'm honest about it. I got into infra because I loved it,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, I'm
Yeah,
making so
I
much more
agree
than I made
here.
in consumer tech.
Yeah, I agree here. And I think it's kind of probably the next step, the next logical step, because you need to be very tech savvy in
Yeah,
order to market infra products. So it's kind of like a logical continuation.
yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, very excited for the next GTM Con and
I'm so
very
excited to
happy
see you
to help.
there, and I'm hoping too we can have a couple points of collaboration on the
Mhm.
editorial thesis, the programming, because I really value your perspective.
Thank you. I would definitely love to join. I would love to help in any way that I can with organizing it. Because last year it was like a real cult slash kind of family vibe where I
Mm,
think you can like share everything that matters for you and people will resonate with this.
yeah.
So I'm really excited for the same feeling. I'm gonna travel to Argentina from anywhere I am in the world for this reason.
I'm so happy to hear that. I need to pick a date, and yeah, I'm so excited to see
Mhm.
everyone again. I think that energy fed me all year, so I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to
for
it.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me. And thank you so much for this conversation. I really enjoyed it. And I hope everyone who's listening enjoyed it as well, because I personally learned a lot.
Thank you so much for having me, really. I appreciate these moments a lot, and it was so nice to chat with you. I almost forgot we're, like, live. I just felt like we were having a little
Yeah,
catch-up. This was so
that's
super
the
nice,
best
and I
feeling.
can't wait to see you in person.
Likewise. Thank you so much again. And thanks for everyone for listening.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Ksenia. Nice to see you.